think I'm going to start. I thank the Okwan for allowing me to speak on their land, and I want to thank the artists. I don't think any of them are here, but if I say anything wrong, please interrupt me while I'm speaking so we can get it correct immediately. This talk is a little different from that in the program because I decided to limit the talk to 8 Tlingit women artists and 1 man. Before I start, I have several provisos. These are by no means the only Tlingit women artists working today. There are many more. I address only a few of their creations, and that is too bad because they have wonderful, wonderful art. And this talk is a work in progress. My ultimate goal is a publication on contemporary Tlingit artists, both male and female. And I ask those of you who know some artists whom I should engage, please, on this project, please let me know. And okay, so let me start. This is, again, I'm doing research on both male and female art, but I thought that it would be, in order to have half an hour for a topic that can last a month, I decided to focus on women. Today, some of the artists I'll talk about today work with wool, cedar bark, spruce fruit, cloth, beads, and buttons, and those are associated with women's work, such as Lily Hope, who is out there, Shken George, Lonnie Hotch, Anna Brown Ehlers, and because he is two-spirited and he weaves, I've included, with his permission, Ruki Tagapen. There we are. Other create art in various media, some of which have formed line designs, typically used by men. Mary Goddard, Crystal Worrell, Alison Bremner, and Talis Zeitlin. These women produce art with varied materials, disparate styles, and diversity of meanings. Some focus on the formal qualities of the textile as well as formline design. Others incorporate contemporary elements from the world in which we now live. There are those whose art may appear unconnected to Tlingit heritage, but are actually deeply immersed in it. Opinions about the proximity or distance of their work from canonical Tlingit art vary, and Lily, who is out there with her work, so this is one of her pieces, but it's better to see the real thing. Her commitment to perpetuating the artistic brilliance of her teachers is unwavering, and she refuses to, quote, mess with forms because they are brilliant within, masterful within. Faithful adherence to her teachers' artistic integrity ensure Lily's connections to culture, to life. She, of course, studied with her mother, Clarissa Rizal. Studying the creations of artists who are now ancestors informs her dedicated pursuit of to master the art of Chilkat weaving. Quote, modifying the art form is not a way to mastery, not a way to honor our teachers. It dilutes the brilliance of the work. Anna Brown Ehlers includes modest innovations, such as the one inspired by her daughter's dream to incorporate gold thread into her weavings. She stresses that if her artistic ancestors had such material available, they certainly would have used it. Shken George, superbly trained in classical weaving and octopus bags, is constantly imagining works of great inventiveness. And she says, quote, it's really like torture. Ideas for new art are stuck in my head, but I don't have the time. She's a teacher, so she doesn't have much time. An example is this pink and magenta robe woven during a trip to Japan containing references to her Tlingit heritage as well as Japanese culture. Lonnie Hotch maintains her allegiance to Tlingit, to historical Ravenstail weaving, but feels obliged to go farther, often by creating colorful textiles with unique designs such as this Sunshine Mountain. Quote, I do not do just replicas of what ancestors did, but take it in new ways. What did they do before beads, buttons, and commercial dye? How far back do you find tradition? Or, as she smiles, quote, how many Tlingit are needed to install a light bulb? Just one, and 9 to say how it's not done traditionally. Although some make assertions about a strict division between men's and women's art, some Tlingit women pay no attention to that. Crystal Worrell studied with Robert Davidson, and here is one of her works that I think shows a good deal of his influence. And Crystal, of course, is the co-owner of The Trickster, and she puts her wonderful formline designs on athletic wear. Alison Bremner worked with David Boxley, Mary Goddard with David Galanin. Mary describes how one day an elderly Tlingit man she didn't know handed her a book about the Tlingit and stated, quote, men didn't want women to become carvers because they thought they would become more powerful. This solves her dilemma about making formline art. Some women's art today functions within contemporary ceremonialism. Before Anna Brown Ayler's father died, he asked her to weave a robe to be cut up and distributed during his memorial. This was the old way, the proper behavior to achieve balance, so central to Tlingit thought. Anna worked so hard and so long to create this textile depicting her father's killer whale crest and children, she hadn't had time to grieve. Before the memorial, Anna consulted his killer whale clan, and after a week of discussion in Klukwan, they consented to this treatment of the robe. For her marriage to Paul Marks in 2017, Alison Bremner and Cheryl Easterwood sewed these wedding robes, echoing traditional textiles. And of course, many Tlingit, including those here today, don recently made chilkat, raven's tail, and button blankets, as well as beadwork, to many kinds of performances and ceremonies that indicate their clan affiliation. For want of a better word, many artworks convey political messages, many about indigeneity. As Tanis Seilton asserts, and I agree, quote, all art is political. You would do the world a great disservice if it was objectified and totally removed from its cultural, social context. Here, the art's form remains second to meaning, which reassesses history from contemporary decolonizing perspectives. Indigenous people around the world have been asserting authority over representations of their culture, contesting the consequences of colonialization, and insisting on recognition of their intensified empowerment. Even if the artist is not intentionally political, the story she tells encourages thought in her viewers. Sometimes we think of art as something just to look at and admire. It certainly is, but that is not all. As, of course, in Tlingit culture, the art is meant to be part of the culture and employed. Numerous theorists have emphasized the innate power of art to disrupt previously unexamined attitudes and inspire altered perceptions of the past, present, and future. The next 3 artists have created strong messages about the effects of settlement on Alaska Natives. The Tlingit, as well as Native Americans in general, resisted the church and the government ambitions to eradicate all Native culture. Nonetheless, they acknowledged some useful elements of colonial society. An example of this is Crystal's citizenship. Citizenship depicts a formline salmon superimposed over what appears to be an official document. On closer examination, it turns out to be John Lenot's certificate of citizenship that included affidavits by 5 non-natives stating that he had rejected his ties to Alaska Native identity and was just civilized. Worrell asserts that, quote, Secretly, we keep our traditional practices while we learned how to better use education, voting, and our citizenship as a way to protect our culture and our children. The superimposition of the salmon crest on top of a federal document expresses a survivance of Tlingit ceremonial and cultural life, even during periods of the most severe discrimination and attempts to destroy the native past and present. Mary Goddard lives in Sitka and creates copper, silver, and gold jewelry, such as the bracelet on the bottom, on the right, and she also uses dentalian abalone and spruce fruit. In Selling Alaska, she uses form line imagery to criticize the avaricious exploitation of natural resources by foreigners in the past and present. The bear depicts Russia, the eagle, the United States. Within the bear's eye is a sea otter. The Russians' rapacious hunting led to regional extinctions. The eagle's eye contains a fish, access to which early settlers denied the Tlingit. The United States still stringently regulates fish and is even considering destroying the Bristol Bay fishery for corporate gain. The reclining Tlingit at the bottom remains unaware that America has been purchased because, quote, the land did not belong to any one person, and never would they have considered to sell the land that they owned. Subsistence and land use remain contentious in Alaska. Tana Salton, whose mother taught her weaving, sewing, and beading, creates the most pioneering non-traditional art of the group. Despite appearances, her culture and its history informs her art significantly. A well-respected installation artist, she straddles two worlds: the Tlingit from whom she draws her identity and artistic visions, and the larger art world which she endeavors to educate about indigeneity with strikingly original creations, some of which illustrate the art of colonization, the consequences of colonization. Her first overtly political installation is Resisting Acts of Distillation, ANCSA, 1971. She challenged the use of blood quantum as the indicator of who could and who could not be considered an Alaskan Native during the historical lands legislation. And the vials are holding red liquid, and this whole installation, which is more complicated than I can describe right now, is a challenge to the notion of the government saying this is what a Native person is. Rights for LGBT people remain contested in certain regions. Ricky Tagaban came out before his 15th birthday. He began weaving after Clarissa Rizal invited him to study with her because historical Tlingit values accepted his gender as Chilkat weavers. Quote, "That's why I was asked to learn this traditional style of weaving, because it's for two-spirit people or women. Knowing that this really prestigious art form was reserved for people with a different gender identity is special. This is called sexual sovereignty. It looks at first like a conventional red and black woolen robe with a Chilkat shoulder robe. As such, it pays respectful homage to the tradition of ceremonial clothing. But it also signifies self-preservation for a boy who in the past was stigmatized, but is now accepted, as is evident in the robe's inclusion here and there of condoms, which you can see on the right." Ricky's art incorporates the history of homosexual discrimination with contemporary changing attitudes. This is Blonde Shaman. It demonstrates the colonialist degrading of previously accepted two-spirited Tlingit. This artistic expression of non-natives, and the blonde is, of course, the non-native hair color. This expression of non-natives imposing their values onto the Tlingit depicts a headdress historically worn by shamans who could be two-spirited. The blonde twists that replace native dark hair signify white religion's insidious control over native spirituality. As Ricky says, things have changed since that time, and quote, I am grateful to be gay at this time, to be making art, to have studied under such wonderful mentors, unquote. By asserting his homosexuality through art, Ricky respects, quote, our ancestors who resisted pressures to assimilate and generations of gay people who stood up to police brutality, public humiliation, etc. They fought to make it safe for people for us to live without shame. So he's incorporating the history of Tlingit oppression with worldwide concerns. Is Lily here? I can't see. Lily, I am so sorry, but I'm talking about you, so I figured you, and if I make mistakes, correct me while I'm talking. Okay. Please. Okay. Family violence is an epidemic, not only in Native communities, but worldwide. Now we're getting to the political messages that extend beyond the local. Lily Hope is currently helping spearhead a weaving project to foster healing for victims in Juneau. Earlier, I referred to Lily Hope's unquestionable commitment to tradition. Within those constraints, however, she is decidedly creative. Her heritage robe celebrates 4 generations of Tlingit weavers, Clara Benson, Jenny Thanald, Clara Rizal, and Lily herself. The robe illustrates a woman at the top. Wait a minute. Yes, is this right? Okay. The teacher demonstrating her students by holding a small robe. This is a variation of the pattern designed by Clarissa that Lily assisted with weaving in 2010, originally entitled Jenny Weaves an Apprentice. Despite the masterful applications of conventional elements, this weaving's composition is distinct and original and contemporary from that of classic 19th century Chilkat blankets. It is, however, a perfect Chilkat robe. The Giving Strength Road, and I want to say that outside you have many of all that you've received so far of the squares. The Giving Strength Road also breaks from the past. Lily's idea was inspired in part by her mother, Clarissa Rizal, who invited 54 weavers to contribute squares that sewed together created a complete robe called Weavers Across the Waters, community robe. Lily has inherited her mother's leadership, organizational skills, and artistic brilliance, which you can say, I think she's incredible, which she utilizes these for the Giving Strength robe, which is led by Lily, her sister Ursula Hudson, and her aunt Clarissa's sister Deanna Lampe. They have invited up to 80 North American Chilkat and Ravenstail weavers to craft 5 by 5 inch squares, all of which will be assembled into a full-size robe. When complete, this collaborative weaving will be given to aiding women in abuse and rape emergencies aware. Juneau's gender-inclusive shelter for survivors of gender-based violence. As Lily has said, quote, we want to bring healing to those who may put this robe on their shoulders. It is well recognized that community support enhances recovery from abuse. This community-created garment represents a tangible expression of care that physically embraces a victim with warmth, comfort, encouragement, and healing, as well as the strength of the Tlingit. Okay? Was that okay? Okay, you can go back to work. Okay. Lonnie Hodge's deep commitment to the natural world coincides with the increasingly urgent problems of protecting the environment. Her Sunshine Mountain celebrates local fall subsistence activities with its deep red leaves containing some cranberries made of red beads and blueberries made of blue beads. Berners Bay Robe honors the southern boundary of her people, referencing subsistence activities such as collecting mussels, portraying patterns of ancestry, illustrating the bay's waters, waves, mountains, glaciers, and alluvial sands, and depicting at the bottom a face of the ever-present spirit who holds everything together. Despite active resistance, a mine on Berners Bay started production in 2010. Appallingly, but by no means surprisingly, this year the EPA fined that mine for environmental violations. Despite such lessons, mine companies continue their plans, including the Palmer mine up the Chilkat River. Lonnie will not give in to the avaricious extraction industries, arguing that, quote, our subsistence way of life, our tourism, our fishing industry, our wild salmon stocks have sustained Alaska. To jeopardize all this for a mine that's here today, gone tomorrow, our people will fight it. The Berners Bay Robe can be considered a tangible expression of the ongoing struggles for Tlingit land. Another installation by Tanis is Territorial Trappings. This represents environmental problems as well. The neon sign at the right of trade, backwards, refers to the fur industry, which earlier provided revenue for Native people, but more recently has been subjected to, once again, strict government regulations. In addition, fashion today misguidedly decries the use of fur, despite the environmental consequences of the false fur industry. The irony, Tanis comments, is that microfibers used for synthetic furs of today's industry, quote, contaminate our waterways, contributing to the deaths of sea mammals, fish, sea life in general, and jeopardize the health of individuals who produce and sew using materials. And there is much more harm attributed to the manufacturing of synthetic materials. Alison Bremner, who asked me to use that as her name, a highly trained artist who learned 3- and 2-dimensional art from her mentor David Boxley, created this impressively canonical totem pole raised in Yakutat in 2018 for her grandfather, John Bremner Sr. However, like Tanis, she creates original artworks that direct attention to numerous contemporary issues, such as integrating new technologies into inventive artworks. Alison remains true to tradition, learns Tlingit, participates in ceremonies and cultural activities, while living in the domain of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and whatever next the social media will provide us with. This form line wolf, for example, is composed of tiny wolf emojis. Alison addresses a variety of broader problems. Cultural tourism on the left, which is one of those things that you blow air into and it goes like this. Cultural tourism decries the commercialization of totem poles. The work on the right, which is a very complicated and very beautiful work, bemoans the loss of indigenous languages. And Mona Lisa Smile supports the feminist project to assume control of their bodies by taking women out of the male gaze and depicting them as dominant. Here, a vampire tooth faced replaces the stoic calm of this famous woman. Alison has superimposed a Tlingit mask recently made, not an heirloom, over a universally admired artwork, overwhelming and controlling an iconic Western painting. No longer is she the submissive beauty, but has been transformed into an intense, scary, formidable being who simultaneously challenges the art historical hierarchy that still situates indigenous art beneath that of the West and demolishes the notion of a powerful female. These artists continue to create. Anna and her daughter are weaving a robe for her mother. Mary wants to apply her designs to clothing. Ricky loves the meditative experience of processing cedar bark and wool and will focus on doing that for a while. Shgen has a chilkat robe on her loom, which she will perhaps exchange for a totem pole for her clan house. Tanis imagines new forms of wearable art. Lonnie, reminded of her mortality by Terry and Clarice's deaths, wants to make a generations robe. Allison is carving a bentwood chest for her father's clan in Yakutat. Crystal hopes to train apprentices who will continue to transfer artistic information that, quote, the ancestors did for 1,000 years. Lily so relishes training others that in her ideal world, she would weave 30% and teach 70%, as she is doing here. In addition to her tireless teaching and organizing, she and Ricky are weaving a full-size transitional robe that includes chilkat elements and geometric designs. Quote, I love both types of weaving and want to marry them and join them together. In conclusion, I would like to return to textiles. On the left of this slide is Lily's Copper Child, which was a collaboration of Lily and her mother, Clarissa. In the middle is Allison's wedding dress, and on the right is a dress by Tanis. Lily wove the robe, leggings, and apron of Copper Child Raven's Tail Ensemble in 2012, utilizing age-old techniques and perfection of forms developed in the past, but it is intended for a young person's ceremonial use today. Allison's wedding robe, based on the design of a button blanket, includes a form-line image referencing her heritage, but as well as the white color and lace embroidery of a conventional white wedding dress. This is an aesthetic representation of interculturality. Tanis's dress at first appears to be like steampunk clothing. I had no idea what steampunk clothing was until I looked it up on the internet. It's a very fashionable kind of 19th century work. Anyway, on closer examination, it alludes to her heritage with the red and black felt, buttons, an octopus image, which you can see on the back of the hood in the center, metal grommets, which you can see on the front, which depict octopus suckers, and strands of glass-cut bugle beads on the left, representing the tail feathers of the raven. On the surface, this dress lacks references to Tlingit heritage, but underneath is replete with Tanis's Tlingit identity. The number of artists and there are many more that I've discussed today, and the quality of art as well as their embodied messages demonstrate reverence for the past, vitality of the present, and an exceptional future for the art of Tlingit women. And art like this, which at first doesn't seem to have a political message, does have the political message of the decolonizing agenda and the strength of Tlingit speech and culture today. Thank you.